Mr. White. How are you?
Good morning, Mrs. Angel. I'm spectacular. How are you?
Oh my goodness, we have an absolute superstar of education in the studio with us.
Exciting.
Let's welcome Mr.
Exciting.
Eddie Woo.
Yay!
Hello, everyone. Great to be with you. Thanks so much for your time.
Oh, Eddie, the crowd loves you.
Yes.
Please. Completely unnecessary.
We are so excited to have you with us. Eddie would be, I would say, the most recognisable teaching face in all of Australia. I'm putting it out there. Yep.
Which is hilarious because I actually have a comically common face. In fact, so much so, I was in a hotel in Canberra a couple of years ago, standing there waiting for my toast to pop out of that awkward rolling machine.
Yep.
And the guy beside me, who was also waiting for his toast, kept making like weird sideways glances. And I thought, oh, this is one of those moments someone's going to say hello. And he said hello, and he said, are you Matt from IT? And I said, look, man, I don't have enough skill to be qualified for that job, but thank you. I think it's a case of mistaken identity.
That's hilarious. That makes me feel so much better about lots of other things. Once I saw Darren Lehman at a party, the cricket coach, and I looked at him and I was heading over because I thought I went to school with him because he had a recognisable face. And my husband caught me just in time before I was going over to say, hey, did you go to North Rockhampton State High School? No, he looked recognisable because he was Darren Lehman as opposed to somebody from Rockhampton.
Smooth moves.
Yeah, whoops, could have gone either way. All right, let's tell the world a little bit more about Eddie Woo.
Yes.
So his alumni is a primary school. He went to North Rocks Public School. The secondary school that he attended is James Roos Agricultural High School, and he went to the University of Sydney for his tertiary education, and he has a Bachelor of Education in Secondary Mathematics and Information Technology honours. Mr. White, tell everybody a bit more about Eddie Woo.
Love to. Eddie teaches mathematics at Cherrybrook Technology High School. Since 2012, he's uploaded his everyday classroom lessons to his YouTube channel, WooTube, beautiful name, which has more than 1.7 million subscribers and 150 million views. Within the New South Wales Department of Education, he leads the Mathematics Growth Team, a statewide program of instructional leaders focused on engaging and evidence-based teaching practices. He is a professor of practice at the University of Sydney, working with pre-service teachers in the Sydney School of Education. In 2018, he was named Australia's Local Hero in the Australian of the Year Awards and listed as one of the top 10 teachers in the world by the Global Teacher Prize. He is an internationally published author, a TED speaker, TV host of ABC's Teenage Boss and Channel 10's Ultimate Classroom. It is so great to have you here, Eddie Woo. Thank you very much.
Yay! Oh no, this is the one that goes on for a long time.
Oh, this is
You're worth it though, Eddie. You're worth it.
No, I mean, please don't run.
Rockstar, welcome.
Okay, take your seats. Come on, guys. Come on. Just
settle down.
In the back, sitting down. Oh my goodness.
He's a busy man.
What a unruly rabble you have here.
I know. Sometimes I just can't keep him under control. All right. It's so wonderful to have you here. Let's find out a little bit more about the teacher who positively impacted your life.
I've had so many wonderful educators, like a lot of the teachers who've come on this podcast. You know, we are kind of this composite picture of teachers who had different values, people who challenge us at particular points in our life. And there are a few teachers that I've talked about very frequently who've made a deep impact on me, like Mr. Brown, my agriculture teacher, Mr. Best, my music teacher. Great name for a teacher, by the way.
Indeed.
Actually, though, today I would love to tell you a bit about someone who I seldom talk about, which is a mistake that I'm going to try and correct now. And that's Judy Anderson. Now, Judy Anderson is actually the person who trained me to be a teacher at the University of Sydney. So some might say, hey, hold on a second, like teacher versus university lecturer, like surely this is a bit education adjacent. The reason I'm picking up on Judy is for two reasons. Number one, she always introduced herself as a teacher, and she was someone who came through public school just like I did, and you could tell that actually as an academic, she was definitely someone who didn't just talk the talk, she walked the walk, she had that depth of practice and authenticity behind her. But the second reason why I want to talk about her is that she, probably more than anyone, really completely transformed the way that I think about the subject that I teach and the students that I teach. I've talked to a few times before about the fact that even though I'm a mathematics teacher now, I was not and am not gifted at mathematics. So when I was at school, if you'd asked all my friends what subject would Eddie teach if he taught, they would universally have told you English and history, because those are subjects I really got a natural flair for and I love them. And my kids are all avid readers as a result. But it was Judy who really changed my mind and my perspective on what the things that we teach our students can mean for our students. Mathematics is an example, and I know it's not the only KLA that does this, but it can really inform the way a child thinks about themselves, like whether they think of themselves as an intelligent person or a capable person, or how they feel in relation to their peers, how they go in this subject and how they feel about themselves as an author of mathematical ideas. There's a lot of self-perception sort of balled into that. And Judy Anderson was the person who taught me I'm not just teaching mathematics, I'm teaching students to see themselves in a different way through mathematics. And I've applied that to everything that I've ever taught.
That's fantastic.
I love that. Often I get told, sorry, Shaz, often I get asked, oh, you're a teacher, what do you teach? And I say students. And they think I'm being, I am sometimes trying to be funny, but I'm also thinking, well, that's actually what we should be focusing on. It's not the KLA or the subject area, as you said. Yeah. Sorry, Shaz, you were saying.
No. We had a magical moment a few episodes ago from a young early career teacher who is trained in English and history and is having to teach maths right now. And she felt like it was I have to teach maths and I'm totally unqualified for this. But that has been her magical moment so far in her career, getting to teach maths and learning to really love it and share that love with students who also previously thought that they didn't love maths. And so that's been a big turning point for her in her career, which is beautiful and great to hear that you're sharing a very similar story as her. I know that you had lots of options to when you finished high school. Tell us a little bit about how you did at high school and then how you came to choose education.
Yeah, high school was a place where I learned to find my place within education. I'd had a lot of trouble in primary school being number one, a bookish nerd, number two, a classic textbook introvert, and number three, someone who I was born in Sydney and have lived there my entire life, but I'm the child of migrants and I had a face that looked really different from the other 29 people in all of the classes I went through in primary school. And so growing up was not a fun experience to try and, find my place as a fairly unusual minority, I guess is the best way to say that. But high school, when I arrived there, it was kind of like I'd found the place where I could be home, where learning was looked at as something which it's like, hey, if this is the core part of your identity, and the things that you love doing, like, I'm an amateur photographer, so I'm the worst person to take to a botanic garden, by the way, because I will like walk into the botanic gardens and say, hey, there's a cool flower here, and I'll spend half an hour there, and you'll be like, we want to go home. So fun stories of when you and I, Shaz, were in Singapore.
Absolutely. I remember that. And you were telling us there's maths and everything. Look at this flower, and this is absolutely, it was great. And as an amateur photographer myself, it was great. But I definitely know there's some people, come on, let's just move on.
Yeah. This is not a hypothetical story. Like I'm not exaggerating at all. Anyhow, I remember as someone in high school finding opportunities to take those little weird idiosyncrasies of my own personality and for them to be prized and valued and for them to grow and flourish. That was really exciting for me. And I think that's when I first got a sense of, all right, like there's a wonderful gift in the strange kind of community, the strange microcosm of society that a school is, for young people to find who they are, to discover who they are, and to let that that flower, as it were. So I think that was the first seed of a thought that I could be interested in going into education. The other major contributing factor was that even though I never got amazing marks in any of my tests or exams or subjects, the thing that my friends very rapidly discovered about me is that I love explaining stuff. I just get a kick out of, as so many teachers do, the light bulb moment, the aha. In fact, I almost enjoyed that more than actually writing the essays and, doing the assignments for the rest of doing the subject. So my marks weren't great, but I was still the person who my friends turned to when they were like, I don't really get the literary techniques in this poem. Can you please explain them to me? So I thought that was something which everyone enjoyed. And it was only sort of in year 11 where my friends told me, hey, we kind of didn't want to burst the bubble, but you're really weird. Did you know that you're really weird?
With love. I'm sure they were saying it with love. With love, Eddie, you a fair bit of love.
Sometimes there was, but
yep.
I think that was the real pushed me through the door of saying, hey, if this is something which you love doing and enjoy, and it sort of have some skill in doing, there's real power in exploring that as a career opportunity.
Absolutely,
I love it.
Absolutely.
Teachers
are naturally sharers, and I think there's a lag, Share. Sorry, I've cut you off again. I think teachers are naturally sharers and helpers, and I reckon that's a great moment of reflection where you can actually realise that that's not something that everyone has, and when your friends tell you that that's something you do and you naturally do and you're good at, what a light bulb moment. I love that. Sorry, Shaz, go again.
No, I wanted to just tell you that my son right now has just gone into grade 7, Eddie, and is definitely experiencing that shift from primary school to high school, and he's really found his people, and he's loving going and doing the subjects separately, and he's got a real love of maths. He's a big fan of yours, and but funny story, he did his first maths test at school. And he sent us a text message, his dad and I a text message when he got the results back, and he got an A+. He got 25 out of 25, perfection results. He was so excited. And he's in the honours class. And when he came home, I said to him, so when you did the honours test, to get into honours, was it all maths? And he said, because I knew that he was pretty good at maths. I didn't know he was really that good at maths. And he said, no. Just shows you he's got a long way to go. He said, no, it was 50% maths, it was 50% English, and it was 50% science.
Love it. Yeah. That's
he's really going somewhere, isn't he, Eddie?
Yeah. No, hey, look, I mean, actually, this is sorry, you've gotten me on a soapbox. This is a funny thing, right? Even though we can have a laugh about this, what this leads into is, and again, this goes back to the thing I mentioned about Judy Anderson, who taught me how to be a teacher. One of the things I used to think was that there's like this body of knowledge, and once you master that, you're an expert at it, and you can just, you can teach and know everything that needs to be known about your subject. And like I've been teaching 15 years now, which is kind of at the weird spot where you're like, man, I've still got so much to learn. But you also look at these younger generations of teachers coming through and you think, was I ever that green? I mean, of course I was, but you kind of struggle to remember. And I remember the first time I had this my own light bulb moment of thinking, oh, we teach students about fractions and decimals and percentages, this very math specific thing. But so many students have this misconception that actually you can never have anything bigger than 100% because that's the maximum, right? And in fact, we look at things that are more than 100% all the time. Like, say, for example, if you're having a look at a budget and you haven't planned out your budget very effectively, you might spend more than 100% of your budget and then have some problems to solve later. So I would say, even though in this particular instance, there's some correction to be had, not the end of the world. We've got some work there.
There you go. Okay. He's going to be delighted to hear that. Absolutely delighted. Remembering, though, this is a kid who in primary school did ride to school, get to school, cross the crossing, and was in his pajamas still. So
nice.
I think there is a fair bit of correction to still go in his sweet little soul.
I love him.
So, Whitey, you had some questions from some of your work colleagues.
I did.
Do you want to throw them at Eddie?
I'd love to. My math teaching colleagues were very excited that I had the opportunity to have a chat with you, and they demanded that I ask you a couple of questions. But they're pretty universal as well. So how do you deal with, or how do you overcome math anxiety in students? And dovetail, what do you say to the parents who have had math anxiety in the past and that they recall never being very good at maths either?
Yeah, wow. That's a great question. And I should say, I've actually been having a conversation about this specific idea with someone around the fact that mathematics anxiety, it's a thing, but anxiety of all academic varieties, it does exist, and it's not as though mathematics has that market cornered, but mathematics is, and I'll give you a reason for this in a second. Mathematics is particularly well known for how much, the physiological response of sweaty palms and not in the stomach, especially if we're sitting a formal test or things like that. It's a phenomenon that is not to be ignored or trifled with. So I guess to come to your question, the first thing is, I guess the conversation we're having right now, to acknowledge it and say, hey, this is a thing. Don't feel bad if you are a little nervous before you go into something. And one of the most disempowering things is to have someone say to you, that thing you're experiencing right now, your emotional experience, it's not real. It's not, like, get over it, right? I have, throughout my family, we've had various challenges with mental health and well-being over the years and the decades. And one of the things I'm so grateful for is that today, our generation has so much of a better recognition and awareness of these issues. And I think about our parents' generation, who they were just told, stiff upper lip, move on. It's all in your head. And what a tragic thing to say to anyone who is struggling with something, very genuine. So I think acknowledgement is the first thing. The second thing, again, now sort of being more fine on our colleagues here, is to just recognize the incredible power of the small interactions that we have. So I'll give you a really little but practical example. I wasn't so deliberate about this at the beginning of my teaching career, but now every year when I start off and get new classes, I'm always ready for this particular moment where I pose a question to the class, and a few hands go up with some people volunteering their responses, and I select someone and they give me an answer that's wrong, and it's very clearly wrong. They've misunderstood the question, they've miscalculated something. And it's not just that I know an error has been made, but actually other people in the class, those who, really have been ahead of the curve, they're like, what are you thinking? Have you been paying attention? I'm waiting for this moment, because when the student says that answer that the whole class knows is wrong, the next 45 seconds are critical for the environment and the expectations and the culture we set up for that class, right? Now, what's going to happen there? Well, very typically, the teacher's going to say, no, 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 no. That's wrong. Someone else got the right answer, right? Or one of the students might laugh, or they might, hit the boy on the shoulder and say, like, what are you talking about? Like, that's, you're going crazy. Now, these kinds of things, which will go by without a second thought if we're not paying attention to them. These are the kinds of little moments that I think contribute to a lot of the anxiety that our students experience in mathematics and in other areas. Because what's the student being taught in that moment? They're being taught, oh, okay, I'm not going to do this next time because I don't want to be in that moment where I've been told I'm wrong, where I don't have any meaningful contributions to give to this class. And so I actually make that a moment, because I'm looking for my students who are going to pick up on that. And I'll say, hey, stop right there. Mistakes are some of the most valuable things that we have in this classroom. We prize them because they help us to move forward in our learning. If we never make mistakes, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. So you've got actually something to learn here if you're the person who feels like they get everything right. Mistakes are things which, if you're a real capital M mathematician in a university, you're making mistakes constantly because you're pushing the envelope of human knowledge. And so that's just a little microcosm of where I like to say, okay, there's a moment here where I can set up a culture, an expectation of assuaging people's concerns about, do I have something to say? Should I put my hand up? What will the teacher say? What will the rest of my friends say when I maybe have this wrong? I want to provide that environment that they feel comfortable in. Does that make sense before I talk about parents?
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely.
Absolutely love it. And kids being able to be confident. We've done our job right. If we've got a class full of students who are confident to make mistakes, put it out there, and then verbalize their learning that they've had from that, because we know verbalizing is so important for learning. So verbalize that reflection, and so what you're going to do in the future, and share that aha moment. That's a thing of absolute beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Whitey,
Tell
the
us
other
about
thing
the
you
parents.
is, yeah, parents. So, I guess, backing off of the last question, the first thing is for parents to, again, acknowledge that we ourselves have this outsized influence on what our children think and believe about themselves. And so much of that is unintentional. One of the things that I read about recently was about how mathematics anxiety often comes from the most unintentional things. So when a parent says something which, and please, if anyone's listening and they have said the thing I'm about to say, don't feel bad, because it is a very well-intentioned statement and it's a very natural thing to say, but it does have some unintended negative consequences that I'm going to talk about. Is the most sort of disarming thing for someone to try and say, hey, look, kid, I was never good at maths either. It's okay. Don't feel bad about it. If you're not very good at this, that's all right. You have my permission, right? Now, people generally say that because, again, we want to come alongside a child who's struggling and make them feel like they're not alone. And so that's not a bad motivation. That's something which every parent does with their children very naturally, right? However, the upshot of that is that, unfortunately, sometimes what it does is it gives a child permission to say, oh, well, then I just don't have to bother, right? Now, of course, they would never necessarily articulate it in so many words, but I see this played out over and over again in classes. That what I see is, as a secondary teacher, I'll have children come in and they're 12 years old at the beginning of their high school journey, but they've had for more than half of their life, it's been reinforced to them, perhaps by what their parents have said to them, perhaps the ability group that they've been placed into over many years. I'm not very good at maths, and I'm never really going to be any good at maths because, well, look at the advice that my parent has given me. They've just said, don't worry about it, right? So I think the biggest practical thing I would say to any parent is to embrace being a co-learner with your child. So many parents during remote learning, right? We experience so much of our child's schooling that we didn't get much insight into before, particularly we got teenage children. I only get like a grunt out of them when I ask them how they went at school today. I'm not an expert at any of the other subjects that my children learn, but I can be curious. And when my kid says to me, oh, I'm learning about covalent bonds, which I remember not understanding when I was at school, I can say, hey, help me, talk to me about this. Talk to me about time signatures in music. I went through preliminary and first grade piano when I was like 7 years old, and I got kicked out because my fingers were too stubby and short to reach an octave. So this is something that's kicking around in my brain. I know it's there, but I don't understand it. Hey, kid, can you help me with this? That statement, well, not even that statement, that attitude of I'm here to learn alongside you, that's powerful. I think it sends a really strong message to our kids.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
excellent.
The attitudes that come from home really go a long way in setting the student up, don't they? I really think that that's true. And often, you meet the parents and you can sort of see where a lot of this might be coming from. But that's a great way to disarm them and to focus on what they should be saying, because, as you say, every parent wants the best for their child. So this is how to do it. Ask them to explain it to you. Great.
Yeah, I love it, and it really often, and it's always with the best of intentions that a parent is saying that, or sometimes saying, well, I was never good at it, so of course you're not going to be good at it, indicating that it's a biological thing that's being passed down. So it's important for us to challenge it, but then replace it with a behavior that we can get the parents to put in place.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it. All right, I'm putting both of you on the spot now. We're talking maths, and I want to hear your best maths wisecrack. So I'm going to play a sting for each of you. Whitey, you're going to go first, and then
Okay.
and then I'll let Mr. Woo go. All right.
Whitey's Weekly Wisecracks. What do you got, Mr. White?
It's actually a perfect
do it.
segue, Shaz, because it's got a lot to do with what we were just speaking about.
Perfect.
Students asking, wanting to get a bit of know a bit about you. So, what were you like at school, Mr. White? What were you good at? What were you not good at? So, spend most of my time playing music and playing sport. And I said, I wasn't that good at maths. I failed that many math tests I couldn't count. And then I said, you cue the laughter. And then I said, but I was very good at history. Oh, wait, no, I wasn't. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not so much a crack, but it's something.
It's terrible, but it's sometimes it's so terrible it's good. All right.
Yeah,
all right, I'm going to play another sting for you. He doesn't say we're just going to replace it with woo. All right, here we go.
Right.
What is Weekly Wisecracks? What do you got, Mr. White?
Well, a lot of people know why 10 was afraid of 7, and that's because 7, 8, 9, and 10 was next. Now, look, I know people know that, but the thing people don't know is why 7, 8, 9, and that's because, well, 7 was told you really should have 3 square meals a day, and 3 squared is 9.
Oh, it's good. It's good. He takes it to the next level. That's what Mr. Woo
You
does.
didn't think we could get any lower than Whitey. Where there's a will, there's a way. How about that?
Hey. Oh, he's got him coming all day.
Good.
All right.
I'm here till the end of the week. Thanks, everyone.
So the comedy, comedy fest is finished. It's a shame. We could have a show going.
He hasn't just been on Play School. He could also have his own comedy show as well. Could be the next thing coming up. I know Mr. Woo's always got something coming up next, so who knows? It could be a little in Melbourne Comedy Festival or something like that. Just a little stint. All right. I also want to hear from you. You've had 15 years in education, and you've done some absolutely amazing things. And I want to say a personal thank you for the work that you've done, because you've done lots of work with kids, but you have done amazing work with really shining a positive light on the profession, and teaching has to have a poster child, and I'm very glad that you are our poster child. And I'm always happy when somebody is speaking highly of you, because when they speak highly of you, they're speaking highly of teachers, and I know that's something you're very, very passionate about. So you've done amazing things, and I know there's been amazing magical moments throughout. So we would like to hear from you now. What is one of your magical moments? I'm going to play some little music to lead you in, and then you can tell us what your magical moment is.
Mm-hmm. For me, even though I've had the ridiculous, incredible opportunities to do so many things as an educator that I never would have dreamed, opportunities and doors that have opened that I certainly did not plan for myself, but they came knocking on my door, and I'm very grateful for them, a lot of which you just spoke about. I think that if I had to pick one magical moment, it is back from something that, as a classroom teacher, has happened to many different teachers, I expect. But importantly, it happens without us necessarily knowing. And this moment, I only can tell you about it because this person came and told me about it. So there was a student of mine several years ago, and what I did not know when she joined my class at the beginning of year 11 was that she had really been wrestling with her own mental health. And to put it very bluntly, at the beginning of year 11, wasn't really sure if she was going to make it to the end of the year, not just even to the end of the year at school, but to the end of the year being healthy and alive, and she was in a very dark place. And as teachers, we sort of walk into the room, you get to know your first first lesson with the kids. You very rapidly learn who are the 3 keen beans who constantly have their hand up at every answer. You learn the other 3 who are the most disruptive and have lots of behavior issues. You're like, okay, those guys I've got quickly. And then in the middle, you take a little more time to work out who's who. And this young woman, I could tell that she was a little bit troubled. She was putting up a very brave front. And I sort of recognized a lot of that from my own, like I said, my own family's wrestle with depression and trying to look like you've got everything all together when it's pretty clear that you're going through a really tough time, right? And so I knew, like, okay, I want to provide support to this student, and I did in many ways what you would expect that we would do to any particular student, which is to say, make sure you get beside them, ask what help they specifically need, if they need support outside of class time, making sure you're available in the morning or recess or lunch, all those kinds of things. Nothing that felt particularly out of the ordinary. But several months in, this student came to me and said, "Look, I'm not sure about whether I should keep going in this subject or not." One of the peculiarities about teaching mathematics is that pretty much every jurisdiction has different levels in and different courses and that kind of things. Like, am I maths A, B, and C, or am I advanced extension, those kinds of things. And she said to me, "Look, I don't know if advanced is really the course for me. I feel like maybe I should drop down, take something easier." And I had that moment where I thought, what am I going to say to this student? Which way am I going to ride? Of course, I knew all the different ways that she'd been struggling, and I'd learned more of those as time had gone on. But I also knew, sometimes, for lack of a better way to say it, sometimes a question like that, it's a bit of a test, A student wants to know, what does this teacher really think
Do you
of
think
me?
I can do it?
Yeah, do you think I'm up to this? And so I said to her, look, I think you're capable of this. Yeah, I know there's some really hard concepts in here and you haven't got the marks that you were really hoping for in some of your assessment tasks, but I've seen the way you engage in class. I know what topics are coming better than you do, and I think you've got what it takes to do these if you're willing to put the work in. And, it was a busy lunchtime. There was like a queue of other students, lining up for different things. And I was like, okay, is that all right? I'm sorry we don't have more time to talk about it. And she's like, yeah, okay, I think I get it. I'll give it a whirl for the rest of the year, right? Now, fast forward all the way to graduation, and she, gets her certificate. She walks across the stage, beams for the, official photograph, and she comes off the stage and, raised my hand for a high five, and she said, "So I don't know if you realize, but that day when you told me to stay in your course, right, to stay in this particular class, I wasn't just wondering about whether to stay in that class or not. I was actually, at the time, I was harming myself, and I was really contemplating some much more severe actions at that point because I was in a really dark place. And you even just telling me that I should keep going in this course, it made me realize I've got something to give, and I'm not ready to give up." And I think a big part of why I'm alive here to graduate and walk across this stage is because I got to stay in your class. And I'm not the crying type of person generally. My wife will, at a graduation ceremony for other kids will start bawling, or, at an Olympic medal ceremony, she's like, "Australia didn't even win, but I'm just so emotional." I'm not usually that way, but I just could not help but, like, my whole face went hot and I felt the tears well up. And I just thought, what a privilege it is to have that opportunity, to have that influence on a young person's life, to play a small role in one chapter in their life, but a critical role. And I know that happens when I don't find out about it. And so does every teacher who cares for the students in their classes. So I don't know if that's not magical. I don't
Absolutely.
know.
That's all kinds of magical. That is perfectly captures the fact that teachers change lives. All of those conversations, you're having so many conversations with students every day, and they all count and they all matter, and they are changing students' perspectives on themselves either way. So it's why it's such an important position. It's such an important role in society, and for the growth of these young minds. And wow, that's really beautiful, Eddie. Thank you. That's
no, look, I mean, thank you. I mean, hopefully, what listeners get from that is that that's not anything. I really wholeheartedly believe that's nothing peculiar to me. That truly happens all the time.
I totally agree.
Yeah. And I think actually maybe just as a off the back of the encouragement of that story, I hope, I actually want to put a challenge to everyone, because I remember one of the teachers who mentored me early in my career, one of the things that he said to me was that one of the best things about teaching is that what you do, it matters. Like, it makes a difference to people, right? As the name of this podcast suggests. But one of the hardest things is that it's not just that it matters, but it matters every single day. You don't know when that little casual conversation.
But not just every single day, every single second of every day. Every conversation that you're having, and there's so many of them. Every little tiny conversation. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it just reinforces, sometimes we might feel like we have bad days, right? We have days where we roll out of bed and we think, do I have to go to work today? I don't know if I've got enough in the tank to do it. But one of the things that motivates me ongoingly is remembering, I never know when that conversation is going to have a deep impact on someone. So be ready for it every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's that moral purpose behind teaching and teachers. And we've got lots of listeners who are at uni studying teaching, which is great. And it's important for them to really have that. It's not just a job, and it's a calling, and tapping into that and knowing that this is a really profound profession. It's not just a 9 to 5. It literally can have a massive impact on people's lives.
So much more. Yeah.
It's very special, very, very special. And if that's not getting you out of bed in the mornings, then what is, right?
Don't know.
No.
Not much else.
All right, I want to change gears. So we've got those life-changing moments for us as teachers and students, which is one of the awesome parts of being a teacher. And then we've also got those other things that happen at schools that are the reason why we get invited to parties and to barbecues, because we tell a cracking story about the crazy things that kids do when they're in your class. Kids say the darndest things. Kids do the darndest things. The crazy things that happen in the schoolyard are ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Do you have a teaching tale that you would be able to share with us, Mr. Woo?
Oh, of course. I mean, the challenge is how to select the right one. So
stop. You think about it. I'm going to play the sting. All right. Get the right one in your head. All right.
Teaching tales. Dun dun dun.
Go for it. Give us your teaching tale.
So one of the things I think is so important is to develop rapport with students, right? And I know this is kind of like a truism of teaching. I think that you can't just, be an expert at your subject. As you were saying, Whitey, we teach students, not just the subject. And so I've always prized myself on putting lots of effort into not just knowing students, what makes them tick, but also sort of going out of my way and not just knowing them within the context of the classroom, but what extracurricular stuff students do. Like, I love going to a music ensemble recital night or a drama night, or getting involved with sport, for example. Though that can backfire. I'm actually a dual subject teacher. Haven't taught IT and software subjects for a while, but there was a point where I taught maths and IT, and I also coached a sport team, and this poor young boy, he had me for all three of them. I'm like, sorry, Kevin, you just get me like 75% of the day. But I've always thought it's important to, I actually love, even when I'm not on playground duty, just getting out there and interacting with students. You often get like a whole different view of a student, just seeing with their friends in a different environment, right? So anyway, one year I had this year 9 class, and gotta love year 9, right? Lots of hormones flying around, lots of energy, lots of fun behaviors you've got to manage. And I knew, okay, this class was tough. I'd taken like a few weeks. I still wasn't quite getting through to them. I hadn't quite established, all right, you guys get what I'm about, and I understand what you're about. And in particular, there was this one student named Raphael, and he was bright, he was smart. And I felt like he should really, on paper, should be the kind of kid who, number one, excels at my subject, and number two, I should be able to get along pretty easily with, right? In fact, some ways, with the people who love maths, it's like, hey, tone it down a little bit, right? There's other people in the class, we should share, right? But the thing that confused me about Raphael is that I'd often pass him in the playground, and I'd be like, hey, Raphael, how you doing? And he would just, he'd barely even acknowledge me. And sometimes he would look at me and he'd just be like, cold is the only word that I can use to describe. And I was like, what have I done wrong? And in class, I started being I'd second guess myself. I'm like, oh, is he in another mood? Maybe there's some psychological issues that I'm not aware of, and he's just going through a really tough time. Anyway, many months pass, by the way, I should say. Like, this is a troubling situation to me for a long time. And then one day, I see Raphael walking along the street because he's going to catch his bus, and I'm also going to catch a bus at the same time. And I don't just see Raphael. I see Raphael, and then I see Raphael again, because Raphael is a twin, and his brother, who I've been passing for months and trying to call by the wrong name.
Hi, Raphael.
And he's like, "You crazy man, leave me alone. Stop hassling me."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yep, just rookie mistake, right?" Like, and here's the thing: at a school of 2,000 students, there's a lot of twins. And I've been a little more conscious of this in the future. But yeah, still feel like an idiot.
There's a teaching
That's
tip in
great.
there as well. You know, if it's weird, maybe check the roster first and see if
Yes.
they're a twin or a triplet. If you're seeing them everywhere,
That's right.
yeah, that's good.
Always,
Love
always
it.
check for siblings, and always know who the parents are, because maybe they're on staff or something like that.
Yeah,
Always.
absolutely. Got to be cautious.
Yeah, we haven't heard that. We haven't heard one of those teaching tales yet, but I'm sure there's one coming
That's
sometime
great.
soon. Absolutely love it. That's great, Eddie. All right, are you willing to play the alphabet game against Mr. White?
Look, I can't lie. I feel pressure because I know the guests have had such an incredible track record, and I'm like,
It's
don't.
been
don't let
uncanny,
them
actually.
down.
It's been strange, actually, that Mr. White hasn't got a win on the board as yet. But
Yes.
today could be the day.
I'm usually very good at things, and I get to salute here, but today's the day. Come on.
All right.
I
I'm
doubt
ready.
that very much. All right.
Play of the weekend.
Thank you, Monty. All right, here we go. What shall we do?
So the completely unbiased questions, of course.
Always.
This isn't gonna lead in my direction.
Always. Excellent. No, I'm gonna kick it off with. Could go anyway. All right.
It's not nice you make that concession for me, that you're actually going to ask a question to which I
One
might be
question.
able to respond.
Excellent. Name a sport played in a school starting with F.
Football.
Football.
That's one for Mr. Woo.
Oh,
All right.
there's a lag. There's a lag.
It's a time thing. I wasn't sure if mine was going to squeeze in, but I think I got
Yeah, it
there.
was well and truly in. It was in by 2 seconds. All right, here we go. Now I'm not playing nice. All right.
Okay.
Name a mathematical concept starting with G.
Geometry.
Look, Mr. Woo.
Oh,
It's 2-0. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, no.
Thank you, internet gods, for smiling upon me and getting my
Well
audio
done.
through before Whitey's.
Well done. Well done.
That's
Very,
good.
very
The
good.
producer
Take my hat off.
will listen to it a little bit later on, and obviously if it was the other way around, we'll switch it. He's good
sure.
like that.
Sure,
Yes.
we will.
Yeah. All right. We could talk to you all day,
we could.
Eddie, and very appreciative. I know that there's many balls being juggled in your hands, which is great, and you're
Yes.
at your school at Cherrybrook today. So I'm sure you've got classes to teach after as the day progresses, and so I would like you to let our listeners know any way that they can make contact with you, connect on YouTube, on WooTube, anything that they can do that they can look up more information about you and learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can get me, I think, on all of the socials that people of my age actually are on. And the reason why I say that is because I do not have, as was demonstrated by the intro, nearly enough dance moves to make it on TikTok. Or Snapchat or any of those kinds of things. I do remember the first time some students said to me, "Hey, do you want to be on our Be Real?" And I was like, "On your what? Like, what are we talking about?" And I got an education, so I'm like, okay, technology moves fast, right? But Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of those, you'll find me. Thankfully, as far as I know, I'm the only Eddie Woo in Australia. There is an Eddie Woo who lives in New York, and he's a DJ. And I occasionally get tagged by friends of his, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know enough musical skill for that. But thank you.
So you need to look up Eddie Woo, not the DJ.
That's right.
Yeah, good.
So that's helpful. The other thing that, you mentioned it very briefly just there, but the way that a lot of people have encountered me for the first time is through my YouTube channel. And I've been doing it for, it's crazy, I've been doing it for more than 10 years now. So it's kind of bizarre actually realizing I've done it this long. But one of the things that happened probably within the first couple of years is that I started to realize that it wasn't just students who were watching. So it's very relevant to this podcast. I was actually getting emails from teachers who were saying, hey, this was really helpful to me to see it explained in a different way. This literally just happened to me last week. Not that I necessarily endorse this, by the way, but a friend of mine from church, she said, I was doing a casual day. And she's a maths teacher, and I was relieving someone else's class, and the instructions that they had left was, please go and watch this guy's video. And like I said, I think you can do a lot better than just putting a video of me on the class on the screen. But anyway, the funny thing was, yeah, exactly. The funny thing, I'll take it as a compliment. I truly do. But what was interesting to me was, my friend from church was watching the video, and she said, I loved it because in the middle of the class, you had to discipline a kid, and it wasn't like edited out or things like that. I was like, no, I don't have time for that. Like, it's just a real classroom. And the bell goes, and I'm like, I haven't finished my lesson. Like, these things happen. So because I started to realize that there are teachers watching, it's a lesser known fact that I actually have a second channel, and it's called, because I'm a maths nerd, it's called WooTube Squared, so it's a little two, and nice. It's videos that are entirely focused on teachers. So now that I do work at the University of Sydney, working with pre-service teachers, I'm starting to put more stuff up on there, and so I'd love to know if there are things that people are particularly interested in that maybe I could, produce stuff on that, and certainly there's quite a few things that I put there over the years that they don't get the same kind of traffic because it's for teachers, not for just anyone. So I hope that's helpful to people.
So for teachers, so you're saying, so it's for teachers breaking down how to teach a certain mathematical concept?
Yeah, so it's a variety of different things. So it's some of that. It's some of, like, when I go and I present at a conference that's for teachers, I'll record it in much the same way that I record my classroom teaching. Sometimes when we have pre-service teachers hosted here at the school, I'll host a little fireside chat with them and then record it. So things like that, anything that I feel like might be useful to my fellow educators, I put it there. So I hope some of the listeners will benefit from that.
That's fantastic. That's very, very helpful. And without a doubt, I know that there's been a number of my schools, if people who have not known how to teach a particular concept, they have definitely gone to WooTube, not WooTube Squared, to have a look at how you've gone about it, to then know how and then to teach it. So that's great. And high praise to you as well, that you're shaping so many young maths teachers' minds. All right. Can you just, what was the name of the university lecturer that you shouted out at the very start?
Judy Anderson.
Judy Anderson. So I want to say a big thank you to Judy Anderson. And without a doubt, this podcast is for early career teachers. It's for teachers. It's for teacher aides. It's for students at school wanting to become teachers. It's for the parents of teachers out there who think their kids are awesome. Hi, Mum. And it's most definitely for universities and particular education departments in universities. Absolutely. Yeah, teachers of teachers, because they're doing such important work with our initial teacher training. Super excited to know that you're joining that team at University of Sydney. I saw how excited everybody was to see that when you put that up on your socials. So they must be delighted to have you and further touching young teachers' lives in the future. So that's wonderful. For our listeners who want to get in contact with us, tell them the email address, Mr. White.
Teachers Change Lives Podcast at yahoo.com.
It's not Yahoo.
Gmail. Teachers Change Lives Podcast at gmail.com.
Oh, you're killing
Better?
me, Mr. White.
Oh,
Absolutely
so
killing
close.
me.
Like a true professional. Well done.
Seriously.
It's a
And
growth
yeah,
mindset. I'm learning as we go.
oh, absolutely.
Progress.
And it's a miracle that Video Pro have come on board to help us give us all of this amazing equipment that does work. And we were telling Eddie before that it's just props. We're just looking like we know what we're doing, and as evidenced by Mr. White, then really don't have any clue whatsoever. So it's on the Gmail. We've also you can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Facebook. And we would love to hear what you think. Go to Apple Podcasts, scroll down, give us 5 stars, and leave us a review. And if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Right.
All right. Eddie Woo, you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much for supporting us and supporting the show and supporting teachers all around Australia.
Doing what you're doing. Yes, indeed.
My
Thank you very
pleasure,
much.
Guys. Actually, my cheeks hurt from all of the smiling and laughing. So
that's beautiful.
Job well done.
Good stuff. Awesome.
Fantastic.
All right. Keep changing kids' lives. See you later, everyone.
That's it. Ta-da.
Bye.
Powered by Riverside.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.